Per usual, living on this channel for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. It is Setup Sunday. I do have some long ideas here as we get through the video. We'll take a look at oil. I really don't care about gold and silver. I know there's things popping off in the Middle East. This is mainly going to be focused on crypto because we'll talk about Legacy Monday after things open and settle in a little bit. But flows for ETFs were actually positive across the board last week. Almost hit a billy on BTC. It's a start. It's something. Good to see some buyers stepping in at the lows. I don't think it's bet the farm territory here on leverage, but if we continue to see inflows, we should see prices start to at least attempt to make higher highs. ETH, a bit lethargic here, kind of less so. Ripple also essentially flat, and Sol actually got a decent chunk relative to what it's been getting relative to ETH and XRP. So that's one thing to watch here throughout the rest of the year is just the relative inflows to the market cap, because, you know, 500 million on Sol is going to be likely different in the effect relative to 500 million on BTC because of the market cap. For the COT data, really no change here, no material change in BTC, still net short on commercials. Not what you want to see, just means it's easier to go down, stay down. That's it, right? And really no other reason to read anything beyond that, in my opinion. ETH also still looks miserable on COT data. ETH going forward should be easier to see the flip on the COT data just because it's not as wishy-washy. It's just straight bear, has been straight bear since July. If price moves higher, I'll bet you 10 sats right now it's because, at least in part, you have commercials flipping from short to long. Correlation isn't causation, but I'm guessing there will be a correlation there. If we look at the backtested AI cloud, not going to go into this, but 15, 37, 40, 18, that's all you need to know. First for BTC, ETH, and Sol, and then we'll look at traditional settings. I'm looking for trades here, right? Where would a long be? A long on BTC on the daily would be at 75, 76. We can see what has happened. Has attempted to happen a couple times, no guarantee, but at the very least, that's where I would want to take a stab. So we're not anywhere close to that. On the daily, ETH, it's 2,300 using similar settings, not back tested on ETH. Keep that in mind. I don't really think it matters too much. This setup, it looks like it catches where it needs to catch. Obviously, it's not perfect every time. That's trading, but 2,300 would be the level there. And then on Sol, certainly more noisy, probably less valuable on Sol, but it would be like 100, anything above 100. And this cloud setting really likes Sol. I really like this for BTC because it's been fairly accurate, and it was backtested on BTC in like 2024 using 2-year prior data. So back to the Josh settings, 2061, 2030. Again, still nothing. I'm looking, right? I'm looking around, poking around, low time frame, high time frame. Is there anything at all to consider here? Not really on the daily. So for me, that just means sizing comes down, or just I ignore it. Most of the time I ignore it. Certainly don't use leverage if the daily is telling you this. Now we could see a mean reversion to 77. That is not a trend trade. We can look at that on the 4-hour. We'll take a look at that in a second. We could see a 73 to 85. That would be also a type of mean reversion through the cloud that could set us up for a bull trend, but we are early on any of that. The good thing about the cloud is it forecasts it ahead of time and lets you know, right? When we look at MSTR in a second, it's letting you know there's a trade coming here. Whether or not you decide to take is up to you, but there's a potential trade setup coming here. Now that failed for Metaplanet, right? It's this equivalent, edge to edge. Failed for Metaplanet. It's not always going to print, but when it does print, it should pay for the losers. That's the point. So again, nothing here on the daily. If we go to the 4-hour, if I was an anxious betting man, which I'm not really, but if you really wanted to take a trade at this point, I think higher highs 67, 68, 69, probably good enough for BTC to take a stab at a long. This measures to a decent distance because of the depth of the early February down move. In reality, Sol is probably the best place to go. We'll take a look at that in a second, but I don't hate longs on BTC and Sol. I'm just ignoring ETH for now because I think you're going to get more bang for your buck on BTC relative to ETH because that's where people are looking. And then Sol is just leveraged BTC at this point. But this is a long setup to watch. Definitely. MSTR again on the daily, huge potential here. Not soon, but this is why you watch this stuff every week, to prepare yourself, to prepare myself to go deep in the paint when I need to. Maybe this morphs into an inverted head and shoulders, a rounded bottom, whatever. I'll take anything that I can grab with two hands and say, yes, let's size this up. Let's go. If this can get a close into 135 in March, April, right? Again, this is tons and tons of time. This is not a rush, but if it can get into the cloud, then I like edge to edge setup potential. But just keep in mind, right? This is what a failed edge to edge looks like on the daily. It starts and then reverses and then breaks out of the cloud to the downside. That is the stop loss. Every time. It never changes. That's always the level. So if this breaks in, breaks out, that's it for me, folks. Sayonara. But this is the exact setup I like on reversals, for sure, into the cloud. Something else that's very curious that's happening is MSTR is slowly bottoming and gaining ground against IBIT. So this likely means MNAV is increasing. I'd have to look at that. Or something's going on here. I don't know if it's MNAV, whatever it is. MSTR is gaining ground on BTC a little bit. That is definitely an inverted head and shoulders there. So from a technical lens, it suggests buying MSTR over IBIT, should you have to choose between the two. Now, on the MSTR USD chart, I still think it's way early. But if I had to choose one or the other, it would be MSTR. And then Metaplanet, there's nothing to do here. See you later. I like 480 in April, if we can get up there. Anything that looks like a bullish cloud breakout, love it. But we're far, far, far away from that. All right, that's enough for BTC. For ETH, again, everything applies, but the best trades that I'm always looking for, price above cloud, bullish DK cross. We're so far away from that right now. Yes, there is a mean reversion trade here from, let's say, 2,000 to 2,500. Fine. If you want to take that trade with a stop loss at 18 or 17, go for it. Not necessarily for me. I'd rather trade BTC or SOL or MSTR, like I said, or hype. We'll get to that in a second. But on the 4 hour, it's the same setup, same deal. There's a diagonal here. Anything above, any higher high, it's probably go time if you're trading this on leverage, which you probably would be if you're trading the 4 hour. For SOL, same deal. There is a mean reversion here, still too early for the edge to edge, yada, yada, yada. All this stuff looks the same-ish, which is also a classic hallmark of a bear trend. SOL in the 4 hour, any higher high, pretty clean horizontal to watch. Let's say 90, 89, 50, something like that. If we can get a 4 hour close up there, I like it. Now, the astute watchers who are playing the home game are going to tell me, well, Josh, the ETH move might be a better deal because it measures blah, 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 right? It might be, and it might move better. I don't know, but I'd still rather trade SOL than BTC here. I'm sort of just measuring this range. If you wanted to, you could measure the bottom of the wick to the top of the range. That would give you a higher target. Maybe you have a primary target and a secondary target, whatever. But this is breakout reversal mean reversion territory, and the 4 hour cloud likes it. Now, let's say all these fail, right? Let's say we all make lower lows here. Then everybody's just going to say, oh, well, this is just a bear flag, right? Or a bear pennant. That's okay too. That's why you have stop losses. But right now it's leaning to the long side on low time frames. And ultimately, how legacy opens up is going to determine what's going on here. Let's talk about hype for a second. The hype bros are ridiculous, just like any other community. But because DEX markets are 24/7 and hype was trading oil, and there's a lot of eyeballs, right, on like the top tier DEX. It's getting a lot of fees. It's getting a lot of attention. That's good. That's what you want. Trend wise, it is still a nothing burger. It is still in the cloud on the daily. There's, to me, nothing to do here on the daily. Absolutely nothing on the USD chart. Anything above 35, and we're talking about a May type potential of a trend, right? This is all about checks and balances, all about looking for the same thing every time, assuming it has a high hit rate. So that's the level on the USD pair I like. On the BTC pair, you're much closer to a trade. This is using the PIF hype USD price against the BTC USD index on TradingView. If you try to look at anything else, it might not look like this. So this to me looks like it wants to go higher. This to me looks like it wants to make a higher high. I think that would be an all-time high against BTC for hype. So this is another long trade idea along with low time frame BTC ETH SOL or MSTR relative to IBIT, where you're not just trading BTC USD directly. You're looking for other stuff that's going on. one way to win in a bear market is looking for relative strength and breakouts like this. You can probably trade BTC directly on Hyperliquid. I have no idea. And as far as legacy, everyone's going to be looking at bonds this week, I assume. Breakouts across the board. These all look excellent. You know, if you're confused, if you're like, oh man, what do I do? What do I do? Do I trade this on 10x leverage or do I just buy TLT? Do I just T-bill and chill again? You know, to me, you can't go wrong with a certain percentage of your stack in just easy, low, carefree US bonds, just because yields are coming down, prices are going up, and you're coming out of a multi-year bottom, potentially. I think TLT has the most bang for your buck potential, shy well on its way of looking excellent and continuing to look excellent. Ag is the coward's choice. It's just the blend. But, you know, all of these look fine. Collectively, all of them look fine. I'm sure they all have leveraged ETFs. I'm sure they all have great options chains to check out. But no complaints whatsoever across the board here. Everything there looks excellent. And then for oil, I never traded oil. I never will trade oil, most likely. But it is above the high time frame cloud for the first time in realistically since mid-2024, but before that, 2022. So we have not had oil breakouts like this in a very long while. We can only hope for the inflation basket, for the commodities basket, that oil does not continue. So that's definitely one thing to watch. There's a chart, gold relative to oil. Historically, gold leads, oil follows. Is this just coincidence? Is this a catalyst that was needed to push oil higher? I know OPEC is releasing more barrels. That's going to help keep prices lower, supply demand. This is probably not World War III, but hey, don't listen to me. Trend-wise, TA-wise, if you're on a deserted island, just looking at this oil chart, you'd say, oh, wow, that's a change of character. Something's going on here. So definitely worth keeping an eye on, if for nothing else, for no other reason than just understanding how this feeds into inflation. That's all for this one. Give me a like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.